Hello, and welcome to our last session today of PdBytes Presents EdTech in World Languages. PdBytes is my YouTube channel, and that's where all of the videos from today are going to be uploaded. So if you didn't catch us live, you'll be able to watch later, or if you want to go back and re-see something. So I am your host, Shannon Steimel. I am the Library Media Specialist and Tech Committee Chair at Live for Life Academy, which is a charter school in St. Louis. And I'm very excited today to have a wonderful co-host, April, which I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm April Burton. I am the Instructional Technology Content Leader for the Francis House School District. And since I was a French teacher for 15 years, I also have the, under my title, is also the World Language Content Leader. So I oversee curriculum for our World Language teachers here in Francis House.
So we're so glad to have April as an expert in both tech and in world languages. One of my colleagues is here as well with us, and I'll let him introduce himself.
I am Young Ai. I'm the mentoring teacher at Live for Life Academy.
And this session today is connecting classrooms across the world, and our special guest for this time period is giving up her lunch to come in and hang out with us, and it's Eileen. So Eileen, let me have you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Eileen Kiser, and I'm really happy to be here.
Wonderful. So Young and I just visited Eileen and her students on Friday, and I recorded a little video. So we're going to watch that, and then we'll be able to ask Eileen some questions about the logistics of how her program works.
Tenemos equipo 6, Josh, Anya, and Shay. Yes. Equipo 6. Hi. Maddie, Emily, Laura, you're 6. Maddie, Emily, Laura, 6.
Recently, I got to visit with this Spanish 2 class at Parkway West High School when they were Skyping with their partner class in Mexico. This partnership is a little unique because it actually involves small groups rather than a whole class partnership.
Do they like to shop like where they live or like in Texas? Because they live on the border. How do I ask that? Nice to meet you.
Español primero. Español primero. Español primero.
Right here. Just
Español primero.
Papa's tu tienda favorita.
Español. Tus preguntas en español. Right?
Wait, I think we're talking in Spanish.
Ropa. Comprar.
Okay. See.
Okay, yo tengo una idea. I started a collaboration with the help of Drew McAllister about 7 years or so ago with an English teacher in Monterrey, Mexico. He wanted to have his kids have an authentic speaking experience, and I did too. So we started just with one classroom Skype with the help of Drew, the whole class to the whole class, and it was kind of strange and a little bit awkward because kids would have to walk up to the laptop and they just had enough time to say, "Hi, my name is," and if they were lucky, they could think of something kind of witty to say that would make everyone laugh and make an instant connection with their buddy. But really, it was just no more than that. But when we hung up, Drew and I looked at each other and we both said, wow, this kind of connection with kids in another country, like that's really, really special. So we knew we had something good going. And so we did a few more class-to-class things. We did like presentations, like our kids would study about the food and music of Mexico. Their kids would study about the food and music of maybe the United States, or certainly food in St. Louis. And they all learned how to say gooey butter cake and toasted ravioli. And we would present to each other because it was still class to class. But then at the end of that, finally I said to my principal, well, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I need to be doing Skyping in small groups. So we need to have 2 or 3 kids talking to 2 or 3 kids, because that's the way we can maximize the effectiveness of having this kind of real live experience. So that's what we've done, and we've developed it over many years, actually, more than just several. And I've also begun through ePals, and I highly recommend that anybody who's not connected on ePals try it, because I found a teacher in the Galapagos, and we've already Skyped several sessions, unfortunately, because their school year is different than ours. They were done in February, so we were only having to be able to Skype through February 7th, was when their school year ended. But we had some really good conversations with them as well. I felt like their level of English was more on par with our level of Spanish. Sometimes Skyping with the kids in Monterrey, because they're so close to the U.S. and so influenced by our culture, the music, television, you name it, they get that, and it's part of their lives. So their level of English is substantially greater than my kids in their Spanish. But most of the kids are very, very helpful, and they always are trying to help us do better every day. So it's a great experience. I hope you'll try it.
So tell me a little bit about what you like about being able to Skype with kids in another country.
I really just like the interaction of being able to talk to somebody who has a different culture than I do. Normally they're really funny, and I think the first time we did it with seniors, and they were just really nice. It was good to be able to talk to somebody else, and help. I guess they helped us fine-tune our Spanish.
This past time when we talked to people, they seemed like they were kind of similar to us in a way, and that was surprising because we were talking about places that we like to shop and shows that we like to watch, and it's interesting because they seem to have a pretty good amount of American influence in their culture, and so hearing that we like similar things was interesting, and we bonded over that. They're really nice.
So what was a fun question and answer that you guys had today with your Skype friends?
Well, we found out we watched the same Netflix shows. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. And the same movies, my favorite movie was Freaky Friday. They all thought it was hilarious because they've watched it too, so.
I'm trying to think. But they were talking about YouTube and if we watch any similar channels and what channels we watch, and I said that I watch BuzzFeed videos. I thought they were really funny, and then they were like, "Oh, I watched a BuzzFeed video," and they were telling us about how they learned how to peel a banana the right way, from the opposite side. And I was just so mind blown. I was like, "How is your Spanish so good to be able to tell me, or English so good to be able to tell me how to open a banana?" I don't know. I was just that really impressed me, and that question was good because it was another thing that we had in common.
Yeah, you can learn anything on YouTube, right?
Right. It also turns out that memes are a universal thing.
Yeah,
nice. Everybody does.
Universal language.
Oh yeah.
So Caroline, I heard you mention that you have been to Mexico. Was that a family trip or?
Yeah, that was a family trip, and it was the year before I went to Spanish 1, so I hadn't really had a lot of exposure to learning Spanish, but it was interesting to see that my family was able to communicate with them, and a lot of people where we stayed, or at least near where we stayed, spoke English too, so it was cool that everyone was kind of meeting, it was meeting halfway almost to be able to communicate with each other.
So for teachers who are thinking about trying this out with their classes, do you have any good last piece of advice for them?
Well, the kids we talked to, I'm pretty sure are about the same age as we are. And they've been taking Spanish for 10 years, I think is what they told us.
Really?
Yeah.
Or English, you mean?
Yeah, English.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. They've been taking English for 10 years. So I think the best advice I would have is just to come prepared with lots of questions for them. Otherwise, you run out of topics to talk about, especially when you're not a fluent Spanish speaker. They're more fluent in English, so it's easier. Mm-hmm. But it'd be better to come prepared with things to say.
Great.
Yeah, also I would say don't be afraid to ask questions because, like I said, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily better at speaking the language than you are, but it's they have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to learning it, and so if you're trying to say something, you can just ask them, how do you say this? And the chances are they'll know. There was a time when I was, asking them about social media, and I was like, come I see you say username? And then they told me, and it's you guys can learn from each other, and that's what it's all about. So.
Because, we're here to help each other. That's
Mm-hmm.
the whole.
So Eileen, we just are in love with the program that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about the logistics of like how it actually works to have these small groups?
Well, I think you even need to we need to take a bit of a step back from there, because it's pretty important that you have at least some kind of connection with the teacher in the target country. You both have to kind of want to have this experience for your kids, because it doesn't take a ton of work, but it takes some work. So you have to figure out, is this person committed, and do we have kind of the same goals? One of the things that's worked really well for me is that I've decided that it didn't have to necessarily be like an extra or another layer. It was whatever my students were practicing in class at that time, that's what we were going to talk about. So my kids on Friday were talking about, they've been learning how to talk about shopping. So that's what we talked about. And their students, my colleague students in Mexico, same thing. Whatever the topic is, that's what they talk about, and we switch topics after the 15 minutes change. Sometimes I've organized the students in groups, and sometimes I've let students organize themselves. I think either has pluses and minuses to it. When you let kids pick their own, they pick their friends, and that can be a good combo. And then sometimes you can probably maybe think of a better combination sometimes. So just kind of really what the teacher wants to do as far as that goes in organizing the groups. Then I send my groups to my colleague, and with my email addresses, and my colleague does the same thing. And we usually try to exchange emails first, just so that we make some kind of a connection. And so each group, within that group, a buddy has another buddy, so that you're connected to your group and you're connected to a particular buddy or two, depending upon how many kids are in that group. That's what's worked the best for us. There may be other ways, but that's what I've done.
And so practically speaking, like to have the small groups, you actually had to have little splitters so that they could all be in on the same headphones. Yes. And then
I have 5-into-1 splitters. Ideal for a group, in my opinion, would be 2 or 3. Sometimes 2 is a little problematic if one student is absent. Then you've got a student that's flying solo, and that, depending upon the kid, that can be okay. But for a lot of students, they would really rather have a buddy with them. And I think even for students who are reasonably proficient, having a buddy there to ask questions and kind of be with them during the conversation, I think makes a lot of sense. So that groups of 2 or 3 students all plugged into the same splitter, and then there's one microphone, an external mic, that the kids pass around when they talk.
So Jan, I know you were really excited about this idea. Like what was your big takeaway from visiting the class?
Yes, so first of all, I really like that you set up, small groups for this kind of interaction, because I believe for beginner students who's learning Spanish or Mandarin or French, they can feel more comfortable. And also they definitely, just in case something happened, like some student, they're absent or they're kind of, in a different language level, they all can engage in some ways. I think that's the first thing I really like, the setup. And then the second thing stood out to me is that, you ask them like the last 15 minutes, you let all the students, they get together, kind of have a reflection and discussion session after that. I feel like that's really significant because, they kind of just recall what happened, and they learning from each small groups. So one student mentioned, okay, so they're very nice, and you kind of help them to realize, okay, there are some culture differences, and also you've mentioned that American culture influence is really big on their culture as well. I feel like that portion is they can learn from each other outside of their groups. Also, they can learn something about the culture, right? Also, one girl, she said, okay, I'm very nervous or something, right? So you kind of help her to go through the process, those kind of organizational difficulties. So they have been met. So I feel like that's really decent part as well, rather than the real conversation part. Yeah.
So Young was excited to try this, and then we realized, oops, time zone, like that may not work. So Eileen, what advice do you have for Young about how he might make something like this or something similar work for his students?
Well, one thing I know, Shannon, is that students like to make videos. And so one idea I might have for someone who is wanting to collaborate with others in a different time zone, sometimes many time zones away, would be to use a platform like, say, maybe Flipgrid, and record a conversation or thoughts or whatever it is that you want the kids to practice saying or doing, and then allow their partners in the other country via video to be able to watch that. And many websites like Flipgrid allow you to leave a comment. So I know that there are others, and I'm not thinking of another one off the top of my head. That's the first one that comes to mind. But I think that kids like to make videos. They do it all the time. So I think I would probably try to tap into that as a way to get them excited about communicating. And I got to tell you, I think it would be really fun for them to watch the video response of their buddies in the other country, to say like, oh, I wonder what they said, what they thought of it, if they said some funny expressions like that's so cool, and things like that students say all the time to react. They would get to learn some of that everyday spoken Spanish, Chinese, whatever the Mandarin, whatever the language is. They would also get that as the kids speak informally, even if it's via video. So I think that would be a really great way to get them involved, is tap into their interest in making their own videos.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like whatever it is that they're learning, they can make videos. If they're learning about, like you said, shopping, they can make videos about where they shopped over the weekend, or where they need to go shopping, or food, or whatever. And they can post those videos and replies as well. And they get so excited about seeing what their partner classes have posted and replied.
So yeah, April, I know this is something you've done before too. Do you have any other words of wisdom?
Well, I did have a question. So your partner class is working on their English, right?
Yes.
And and I didn't get to see how this works. So do you have some time then where your students are speaking in English to?
Yes, absolutely. It's a two-way street. I don't, I have the collaboration that I mentioned in the video with the gentleman in Ecuador, in the Galapagos. At first, his idea was, well, my kids are only going to speak in English, and your kids are only going to speak in Spanish. And the problem was that while it was very good on the speaking portion, what was missing in a real-world task was the listening and the interaction. So I tried to bring him over to my side and say, but my kids need to hear your kids, and your kids need to hear mine too. So it isn't just only speaking in the target language, because we need to have that full circle. I talk to you, you respond, I respond back appropriately, or you didn't get whatever it was I was trying to say. And that kind of feedback you can only get with a real live conversation. So that's why I think it's important that we only do the target language for a while, and then, obviously that their language is going to be, they're learning English. So then, yeah, we help them with English, and you can see a wave of relief as the English. They're like, oh my God, that was so hard. Okay, I can relax now. I get to speak English now. So, that's a little bit of a challenge as well. But my kids they like to help. And so that's their turn to be the helper, to be the one that's got the leg up, to be the one that says, I know how to help you say that. So it's a two-way street. And as the one student mentioned in the video, they help each other. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
So, I know, Eileen, the connections have extended even beyond just the Skype in the classroom. You talked about how some of them have connected on social media, and that you've actually had a couple of in-person exchanges. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, at first I was a little concerned years ago about, oh my God, should they be looking at their buddy's Facebook page or their Instagram? And I thought after a while, yeah, they should. They should be reading in authentic kids, real kids saying authentic things that they would say on their Facebook pages or wherever in social media, that would give them a chance to be interested to go and seek that out, and vice versa as well. So I think they feel like they made more of a connection with the social media piece by both reading and responding in the target language with authentic expressions. And yeah, it did also grow into, they came here and then we went there. So yes, I mean, it can grow into an exchange, and it did for us. I don't know if it will for others who try this. With my first Skyping with the gentleman in Galapagos, he was ready to, come on, you guys come down here. So I think a lot of teachers are very open around the world to having this kind of an exchange, this kind of cooperative learning experience, and then having it grow from there. Because, you know, when you host students for a week and they come and they get to know and they live with a family, it's an unforgettable experience. And then, you know, your kids want to go there, and that's a really great thing to have them want to go there and use their language in an immersion experience.
So Eileen, I know we want to be respectful of the short amount of time you have with us for lunch, but Young or April, any last questions or comments for?
No, but this was really cool. Thank you for that glimpse into your classroom.
I'm going to try to do this.
You go for it. You go for it. Let me know how I can help you. I'd be happy to do it.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for our PdBytes Presents EdTech in World Languages. It's been a wonderful experience, and I hope you will check out the videos on YouTube that you didn't get to see today.